Hello. In this dot loop minute segment, we're going to talk about adding people to your loop and why we may add some people that aren't part of our transaction. So, what does that mean? Well, we're looking at a loop here. This is my buyer loop. My buyer has decided on the property 456 Elm Street. If I scroll down to the bottom, we can see my people. So, I have, of course, admin. Anytime you create a loop, admin for Blue Door Group is automatically included. Admin for Blue Door Group is myself, Jody, Billy, Henry, the people that may need to access this loop. I've gone in and added where I am added. I am listed as the buying agent. I may have had to identify my role, but we can always do that over here and select who you are in this transaction. And then I've gone through and added my buyer. So I have Betty Buyer that's getting ready to purchase this property. Other people that you may add. You may want to add the attorney or paralegal. You may want to add the lender, the people that you feel that you could be sharing documents with regularly. You may want to add the listing agent and put their email address in to easily share with them as well. But the group of people that I want to discuss and really, really make us ponder, let's talk about adding the sellers. Now, I know what you're thinking. Julie, you just said that we're representing the buyer in this transaction. You also said there's a listing agent. So, what do you want me to communicate directly with the sellers? And the answer to that is I don't. I don't want you communicating with the sellers. I want you to let the listing agent communicate with the sellers. So, why would you want to add the sellers? The reason why you could save yourself a few steps for adding the sellers is the autofill section. I don't know their email address. I don't need to know their email address. I just need to know their name so we can fill in the seller's names on the documents like the offer to purchase and contract, any applicable addenda, things that I am doing on behalf of my buyer. And you have a couple options. If you don't want to add the sellers here, you don't have to. That just means that you have to type in their full legal name on every field that is required. Or you could consider adding the sellers. So we're going to add Sarah seller. We're going to identify her as the seller, add a person, no contact information whatsoever. So now I have this person in. I don't have an email address, which means I can't send them anything. So now if we come back to up, and now I'm ready to, do the forms and populate the forms for my buyer so we can fill in the pre-printed forms and then submit an offer on their behalf. So we're going to use our offer to purchase and contract. This seller, this transaction has something with the additional provisions addendum and anything else that you need to fill in. That piece hasn't changed. I'm going to open these documents. If you've come here, this is the first time you're opening this document, then this autofill box is going to pop up. And I'm going to make sure it's identified. Buyer one is my Betty Buyer. Seller one is Sarah Seller. It recognizes me as the buying agent. If you had a listing agent in here, it would recognize them as well. Here's your escrow. If you had a lender, for example. So it's going to tell us the roles that are available on these forms and who we have for them. You may want to consider filling in the property address here. Again, the more you can do on autofill, the less you have to do on each individual form. So I think we use 456 Elm Street, which I'm not going to put that in because it's not a real address and it might muck things up a bit. But if you had a real address, you could put that in here. Buying agent, this is your information. If you want to fill some of this in, again, doing it here prevents you from doing it on multiple forms. I wouldn't worry about financials because we kind of want control over that. I wouldn't worry about contract dates. Let's still be in control of that. Rest of this information. I would just really, really worry about the roles and the property address. I think that's getting you off to a good start. So we fill that in. I'm going to tell it to autofill. And you can see right there, I didn't have to go through and type in Sarah Seller and Betty Buyer. It already did that for me. Had I put the address in, it would have populated here. And it's already got the place for everybody to initial. It's assigned these initial and signature fields. But remember, I'm not sending anything to the seller. So when they get it, this is going to be blank. So the listing agent can populate that and have them sign it. We'll see the same thing at the bottom of each page. We'll see that, again, our signature fields, let me get there. Here we go, have been auto-filled. So I know my Betty buyer. I have nothing for Sarah, but I do know Betty buyer is going to sign here. Had you put your information in, it would auto-populate. And then the other document we did again was our provisional additions addendum. And you can see the names are already in. Had we put the property address, it would be there as well. So it's a step, but it's a quick step that could possibly save you time, especially if you have a transaction with multiple forms included, multiple addenda included in your contract. It's just saving you from typing Sarah Seller over and over and over again. I'm going to save what I've done. Um, let's pretend that I have more work to do. I'm not ready to share it yet. Maybe I have an appointment. Maybe I have more to look at. And I come back to this loop later and I'm ready to complete the pre-printed paperwork. I'm ready to complete 2T and 2A11T, the additional provisions addendum. Note, this time when I click on open, the autofill box did not automatically come up because we've already done that once. But what if, I don't know, the listing agent called you and said, Sarah Seller has a husband. We need to add him to the contract. Well, now we can add the husband as a buyer. I'm sorry, add the husband as a seller, come back into the document. And because the autofill box didn't come up, I can come up here, click on autofill and make it come up. So now if I had, Mark seller, I could identify him as seller too. And then it would, again, autofill. Less work for me, less steps. That is this dot loop minute segment. If you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.